Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack, Worley III.
Hey, Mack Pack, it is great to be back with you. I have missed you so. It feels like it's been quite a long time since I've spoken to you all. And for those of you who are new here, my name is Mack, Worley III, and this is On the Move. This is the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. And man, do we have an outstanding show for you today. I am so excited. So very, very excited. Today's show is titled Ferguson, Amnesty, Oathkeepers. We have a special guest coming on the show. Some of you might have heard of him. His name is Stewart Rhodes. He's the founder of the Oathkeepers. Anyway, this is episode 51 of On the Move, and I again thank you so much for everyone joining us. The date is November 30th, 2014, and we got a lot on today's menu, a lot of stuff for you guys to digest, and as usual, I'm really looking forward to hearing from you guys. So always, you can always give us a call in, you can email the show. We'll get to all that information in a moment here. But the first topic that I want to bring up here is just some general thoughts here that I've had in regards to Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and consumerism in general. I want to give my thoughts on where we are with that as a nation. Then we're going to move over to a weekly defender. It's been a little while since we've done these segments. We keep running out of time, so I'm going to get to this. I want to get to it first and foremost. And then around 5:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and that's 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be joined by our special guest. Again, that's Stewart Rhodes. Stewart is the founder and director of the Oathkeepers. And he served in the U.S. Army. He was a paratrooper until he was disabled in rough terrain. He was parachuting, and he had an accident during a night jump. And then he is a former firearms instructor and former member of Representative Ron Paul's D.C. staff. Stewart previously wrote the monthly Enemy at the Gates column for the SWAT magazine. Stewart graduated from Yale Law School in 2004, where his paper, Solving the Puzzle of Enemy Combatant Status, won Yale's Miller Prize for the best paper on the Bill of Rights. He also assisted teaching U.S. military history at Yale. He was a Yale research scholar and is writing a book on the dangers of applying the laws of war to the American people. And again, I'm so very excited about having Stewart Rhodes on the show today. If we have time for it all, him and I are going to talk about a number of different topics ranging from Ferguson, the escalating situation there, Obama's executive amnesty, and obviously, I want to get to some of the things that the Oathkeepers are working on. And lastly, we're going to enter into the Mack attack into the second hour of the show. And, this is where I talk about outrageous things in the news. Well, in this episode, I want to talk about some of these tactics that we see being used in Ferguson. And I want to use history to kind of deep dive, analyze, the outcomes of some of these previous civil rights movements and some of the tactics that we saw them use and how that ended up, how that worked out for everybody. So, but again, most importantly, first and foremost, I want to hear from you guys. You guys are the stars of this show, the only reason why we keep doing this thing, because you guys listen. So if you have any questions for me, you got any comments that you'd like to make, or when Stewart comes on the show, you want to ask him a question, you can do so in a bunch of different ways. First and foremost, you can call us 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email us at talk@onthemoveshow.com. Again, that's talk@onthemoveshow.com. And if for some reason you don't want to do that, you can also comment in our chat room we have here on Blog Talk Radio. And, I'll read your comments live on the air. So, anyway, let's go ahead and talk about, obviously it was Thanksgiving, and I hope all of you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know I did. We sat around and we stuffed ourselves with turkey and stuffing and all sorts of other good foods that were, probably awful for people who are trying to watch your weight or on a diet of some sort. Just so you guys know, I'm actually I'm on a diet. I try to eat lean and clean and things like that. But I gave myself a break on Thanksgiving. We had a whole cheat day where we ate all sorts of stuff like cherry pie, and oh man, there was this pecan pie that we had. It was the best thing I've ever had. It tasted like literally heaven. It was amazing. And so anyway, I got to thinking about it, and after we have our own traditions. We sit around and we talk about what we're thankful for and things. And I was thinking about the true meaning of Christmas and of Thanksgiving and just the holidays in general. No matter what you're celebrating, what holiday it is, around this time of year, what is the true meaning of your holiday? And for me, I feel like the holiday has kind of been taken over. All of them have kind of been taken over by this corporate consumerism attitude where, everybody's just worried about the stuff, these things that they can get. What can I get? And even I'm guilty of that. I mean, I bought stuff on Black Friday online because it's cheaper. It's a good deal. But at the same time, it's not what it's about. You're right. Deals, aren't really what it's about. In fact, if you talk about the history of Thanksgiving in general, most of I love history. I'm a big history buff, and if we're talking about history, we have to actually bring it back to the roots. What actually happened? 1620, the Pilgrims came here. They rode in on the Mayflower, and I believe the other ship was the Speedwell, if I'm remembering correctly. So they get here. It's the middle of or like the very beginning of winter, basically, and it's rough, They don't have any structures built. They don't know what they're doing. They can't grow crops. They're not set up for this. So a lot of them starve. A lot of them die. They're being subjected to the elements. Then the next year, 1621, thanks to the Wampanoag Indians, they learn how to harvest. They learn how to grow corn and other foods, and the Indians teach them how to do this stuff and survive, and not only just that, but thrive. Comparatively speaking, from the last year, they are suddenly now far, far better off. And anyway, they harvest everything, and after the harvest, they take the time to thank what they have. They're thankful for the food that they have now, which they didn't have before, and they celebrate with the Native Americans, the Wampanoag Indians. They spend the time to invite them over, reap the benefits of the harvest. They play games. They enjoy each other's company. They even have like wrestling competitions and stuff. I mean, it's pretty amazing. At the difference, that is like, major focus on family. There's no talking about, big screen TVs. Obviously, they didn't exist, but people weren't talking about that kind of stuff at this point. People were thanking God for what they had and just being thankful for their family and the ability to thrive. We have changed that. We have changed in every holiday in general now. It's about what material possession can I get the best deal on and give or get to or from my loved ones? That's what this has become. I really don't like that. Me personally, I am going to do everything in my power to make these holidays that are upcoming that I celebrate, as special as possible. Not about the material possessions, more about spending the quality time with my family and just cherishing the times that we have together. And when it comes to Black Friday, this situation is just, I feel like I'm watching the decay of our society when I look at these crowds inside these stores, fighting people, trampling people, killing people. They're running over people and trampling them to death. And I was watching this documentary. It was a small clip from it, and they were talking to people that were in the Black Friday line. These people are being interviewed, and every single one of them almost did not know what they were there to buy. They didn't even know what they're there to buy. They're in line waiting for hours, prepared to trample somebody to death. Some actually did, and they don't even know what they're actually there to buy. Anyway, I think this is a big problem that we're facing right now. Our history is being forgotten. People are more into consumerism than they are into family, history, being thankful for what they have, and just being grateful. Honestly, gratefulness is a long diminishing quality in this country, and it's unfortunate because it has a long history of people being grateful for the things that they have. Our country has a long history of people being grateful, and now that feeling of being grateful has been replaced by the sense of entitlement. I'm owed these things. I deserve this. It's a big issue. And again, I feel like we as a society need to change this. We need to reverse it and focus more on the family. Anyway, I'm going to break from this and talk a little bit about some other stuff here. In a few minutes, we're going to have Stewart Rhodes on. He's actually on the line now. I'll be having him on in a few minutes. And we are going to enter into our next segment, The Weekly Defender.
And now it's time for The Weekly Defender. You have the right to defend your life, the right to defend your family, and the right to defend your freedom.
This is a segment of the show where I talk about armed citizens in the news who have used their firearms to defend their family, their property, and themselves. Our first Weekly Defender we found in an article on controversialtimes.com. It was written by Reagan Wilson on November 25, 2014. He writes here in the article, it appears at least one shop owner in Ferguson, Missouri decided he wasn't just going to leave his store for the violent crowds last night. In a recorded video from Vice News, a man could be seen walking around inside of a shop wearing a clearly visible holstered handgun. Even as other businesses are set on fire very close to this shop, protesters seem to pass it over. It's unclear if any protesters were deterred by the firearm or if it was just serendipity that this shop was spared. But as one of those examples of an armed shop owner captured on film during last night's events, following the decision by the grand jury to know Bill Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson and the shooting death of Michael Brown, mass rioting and destruction broke out. Over a dozen buildings were burned, many of them to the ground. Several police cars and even more civilian cars were set on fire and vandalized. Several hundred shots were fired in multiple instances. At one point, firefighters were unable to fight the blazes due to repeated gunshots in the area. Over 80 people were arrested during the demonstrations. A police officer in University City, less than 5 miles from Ferguson, was shot in the arm. In our next Weekly Defender, this is actually something I found on Oathkeepers.com, and a listener showed me this. I just want to shout him out. Thank you so much for that. You know who you are. And in this article, this is actually written by Stewart Rhodes himself, I believe, and it was posted on November 29th, 2014. And we're going to be talking about this and a lot more when we have Stewart on the line here. On Tuesday afternoon, as Oathkeeper volunteers were boarding up the window fronts, some thugs walked up and said, "We'll just tear those down and to get in." To which one of those men said, "We won't let you get close to those buildings." And these are Oathkeeper members who have been basically defending different stores and apartment complexes, volunteering their time to come out even on Thanksgiving to defend this private property and keep these people protected and keep the rioters at bay. So these people said that they're just going to tear down the boards that you're putting on there, and the Oathkeepers responded, "We're not going to let you get close to these buildings." The thugs responded then and saying that we'll just throw Molotov cocktails on the roofs tonight and burn these effing buildings down. But that didn't happen because our military and police veterans were on rooftops at night, wetting them down and standing guard with a fire extinguisher in one hand and a rifle or shotgun in the other. Our security team did spot coordinated arsonist teams moving along the street, assembling Molotov cocktails as they went. And some did initially try to approach the buildings we guarded. But when our men shined their bright tactical flashlights on the wannabe arsonist and in loud voices from above told them, "Your current chosen profession is not a healthy one to pursue here," the arsonist suddenly remembered that they had somewhere else to be. And that's how it went all week. Other buildings around them, some as close to 50 or 75 yards away, were set on fire and vandalized. But the buildings that our team guarded went untouched and unburned. Passing thugs occasionally shouted insults and obscenities and made threats, but none of them had the courage of their convictions. None of them stepped up to walk their talk, and our men fortunately, did not have to use force on anyone. Their presence and vigilance alone were a strong and effective deterrent. They were cool, calm, and professional, but also firm in making their resolve to defend the buildings and residents known. So anyway, we have Stewart Rhodes on the line right now. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. Hey, Mr. Rhodes, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I am doing very well. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very busy man, and I just really appreciate you coming on the show to talk about everything that you guys got going on and joining us today.
No sweat.
So I got a couple of questions for you, sir. First and foremost, I know you went to Yale Law School, and I'm just curious, as a lawyer, what kind of law do you actually focus on?
Constitutional law.
Okay, so I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you started the Oathkeepers in 2009. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. For our listeners who may not know what the Oathkeepers is, what they're about, what are some of your goals or a mission statement, so to speak, for the Oathkeepers?
Well, the primary goal is to reach out to everyone who serves, either military, police, or first responders, firefighters, EMTs. Remind them of the Constitution. Both the current serving and also veterans have responsibilities and duties. And right now, what our veterans are doing in Ferguson is they're defending the Constitution, keeping their oath by going there and helping the people preserve their lives, liberty, and property, and show them a better way. I mean, the big picture point is that just as back in August there was a failure to do it right, we see now another failure to do it right. The police and the Guard, unfortunately, under the command of the governor, are not protecting these buildings, not protecting. And it's not just about shops, it's also about apartments. Above the buildings that we're protecting, above the shops are apartments that people live in. So this is about protecting human life from arson. Arson is attempted murder. But the National Guard and the police were not properly stationed to protect the buildings. I mean, the no-brainer answer is you put guys on the roof. If you got people threatening to burn buildings down, and you got Michael Brown's stepfather, screaming to the crowd, "Burn this bitch down, burn it down," over and over and over again, and that's exactly what they did. Over 20 buildings have now been burned to the ground in Ferguson. How do you stop that? You put a couple guys on the roof, you let the roof down, you have fire extinguishers in their hands and buckets of water, and that's how you do it. And then you spot for the arsonist, and you have people down on the ground in the buildings if necessary, just to go out there and snatch them. That's the common sense way to do this. But they didn't do that, and they still refuse to do it. In fact, they don't want us to do it. They're threatening our guys with arrest because we're making them look bad. That's the bottom line. But they're trying to say that our volunteers are required to get a license, a security guard license, that is only prior to this only applied to people who were employed, paid to go be a security guard. So the regulation doesn't even apply to unpaid volunteers, but they're trying to argue that it does. So under that perverse logic, nobody can go and help their neighborhood. No one can help their neighbor protect their own property without being in violation of this rule, which is totally absurd. So they don't want the people of Ferguson to guard their own buildings, and yet they refuse to guard the buildings. So what are the police for? If they're not going to protect the people, and instead they're going to actually interfere and try to punish them for trying to keep them being burned to death, then what is the friggin' point of having cops?
Yes,
so I'm flying there tomorrow. When I land, I'm going to organize a community meeting on security. I don't care about political differences, nothing else. People should agree that the people of Ferguson have a right not to be burned to death, and they should get together and start neighborhood watches to stop the arsonists. That's what needs to happen, is that people themselves need to take responsibility for their own self-protection and organize neighborhood watches to get it done. Because obviously the police chief, the governor, don't care about them, don't want them to stop the arsonists, and will not stop the arsonists themselves. And so the people are going to have to just do it themselves directly.
Yes, sir. And from what I understand, you guys are holding some kind of protest against this St. Louis County PD Chief of Police Belmar, who's the one who's trying to do this banning of you guys even being out there providing security and helping people.
Yeah, we were out there all week and stopped multiple attempts at arson. And now he's telling us we can't be on the roof. So our guys are saying, okay, we'll be on the sidewalk protesting. So they're still there. And we've got the ones who are retired police officers are exempt from that stupid law, or the chief of police, argument that it applies to our unpaid volunteers. Well, it doesn't apply to police officers. So we have our retired cops up on the roof still. So they are still protecting the buildings. But you shouldn't have to be a retired cop to be able to do the right thing. It's ridiculous to make that argument. Like the people who right now, there's a Conoco station just down the road, a couple of miles down the road, where you've got a gas station owner who's loved and respected by the community. Some young black guys decided to bring out the AR-15s and their handguns and guard his store and his gas station, and they're still doing it, but they're not being persecuted, and which is good. But then why are they persecuting us? I think it's because we've got national media attention, and we're very vocal. Our cops are very vocal about saying that they have not done this right. We've got our own tactical experts and police officers who have made repeated, calls to the governor, open letters to the governor and to the police saying, look, here's how you should do this the right way. And so far, they still haven't done it right. And so I think they don't like the black eye, and they don't want it done right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you guys have been so effective in stopping stuff out there. You've definitely made them look bad because they haven't been able to do the same thing. But, I want to shift focus a little bit here, and I want to talk about some of the other things that you as an organization, the Oathkeepers, what are you guys working on? Like I know there was some sort of emergency preparedness teams that you guys had that were going. I'm not sure if you guys are still doing that or not.
Yes, we are. They're called community preparedness teams, CPT, and that's what we're doing all over the country. And so really, this operation in Ferguson is a CPT operation. This is exactly what they're for. This is why we have that program. People have got to have neighborhood watches. They've got to be ready to take care of themselves and their neighbors. Look at Ferguson. If that had been organized, if that community had neighborhood watches and all those shop owners were organized for mutual aid and self-defense, none of that would have happened. No arsonist would have been able to do anything. Because they're not organized, because the people themselves are not organized and taking responsibility for their own self-defense. Look what you got. That's the lesson there. You have got to have a neighborhood watch. So everyone listening, I don't care if you do it through Oathkeepers or if you just do it on your own. You need to start a neighborhood watch. That's the most important thing you can do. Everything else, nothing else is more important than that. And everything else comes from that. Once you've got a secure neighborhood, then you can think about bigger picture stuff like your county and your state and everything else. But if your neighborhood's not secure, nothing else is going to matter. No cop is going to go do his job, no firefighter, no search and rescue. None of them are going to go out there and do their jobs if their homes are not secure. They'll stay home and protect their families. That's just a reality.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So other than the CPTs, what other things does Oathkeepers have going on in the works right now?
Well, we still have always been reaching out to the current serving. We have billboards up around the country we're putting up. We encourage our people to support constitutional sheriffs. I mean, it's the full spectrum. You have a responsibility to be involved in your community from top to bottom. Most important is security. Neighborhood watches is the ground zero for that. But sheriff's posses, a constitutional sheriff, those are all critical. Keeping an eye on the politicians. Someone's got to go to every town hall meeting, every county commissioner meeting. You got to be paying attention to what they're doing. And you got to root out the oath breakers. Those who are not serious about defending the Constitution, you got to purge them out of office. So, it's full spectrum. There's a full spectrum assault on the Constitution right now. It's political, it's legal, it's in the media, it's in the schools, it's all across the board. We have to fight back the same way. In your churches, you better be organizing your churches. Every one of your churches out there should be doing what the LDS Church does, the Mormons, when it comes to preparedness. Everybody needs to be involved. You need to be going down to every local town hall meeting, every school board meeting, you name it, and making sure that your community is doing what the founders expected us to do. And ground zero is the militia. We're supposed to be a militia of the people. So revitalizing and restoring the militia, an honest-to-God militia, made up of all the people, all able-bodied citizenry in the community, should be the goal. Because everything else will be taken care of once you do that. But if you don't have that, if you don't have that security, you will not be secure and you won't be free. Just go look at Ferguson. One example. Or heck, look at Buffalo, New York, with all the snow. There are people up there who can't even get out of their own neighborhood because of the snow. You've got to be prepared to take care of yourself.
So let me ask you, because I've heard quite often, and just so you know, I'm a county chapter member of the Clark County Oathkeepers, and I've heard a lot of critics of the Oathkeepers say that it's just a militia in disguise. What's your response to critics who say that?
Well, to me, a real militia is every able-bodied person in the community, united, trained, equipped, and under the authority of the civil government. That'd be the county commissioners or the town, if it's town council, if it's a town militia. So to me, guys that just get together with themselves and a dozen buddies and call themselves a militia, that's not legitimate, because they don't represent the people of the county, and it's not made up of the people of the county. The only real militia would be one that's made up of all able-bodied people. So that's why Oathkeepers is not a militia either, because, a real militia is everybody in the community. So what we do want to see that established. But I'm not going to say Oathkeepers is the militia of whatever county. That's ridiculous. So what we can do, though, is go out there and help teach and train and lead by example and help to organize. And like I said, a neighborhood watch is also not a militia, but a neighborhood watch is at least the people themselves for the limited purpose of protecting their neighborhood. And I would say, even if you were to be successful in reestablishing, like, say, a county militia by official county act, even then you would need a neighborhood watch, because the same problem as before I talked about. If you're going to project out, there's no way that the members of the militia are going to leave their house and go and deploy to protect the county or the state if their homes aren't taken care of. So you've got to have the neighborhood watch as the home guard, as ground zero. Then you can start talking about sheriff's posse for the law. That's a law enforcement function. And then you can talk about the militia, the military function of the state. But both of those should be under the direct control and authorization of the official government of the county or the state. That, to me, is a legitimate militia. Anything else is not. I don't fault guys that go and start private militias. I understand why they're doing it. But they're not the people themselves. And so until the people themselves get off their friggin' butts and organize themselves into militia, I don't think that title should be used on anything else.
Do you think that we have a constitutional right to form a private militia?
Yeah, I think you do. I think if you have no other recourse, I'm just saying that we don't look at ourselves as being a militia because we want to see it done by official sanction. But if the government's going to do what it's been doing at every level, look at Ferguson. The police chief's trying to stop us just from volunteering to stop arsonists. He wants those buildings to burn. If the government refuses to do it, then yes, the people in the end have that power in their hands. They have no other choice. But it's not my preferred way to do it. Preferred way to do it is just like a sheriff's posse. It's better if you can go find a constitutional sheriff, start a posse under him, under his authority. Then you have maximum legal authority and public support and legitimacy in the eyes of the public. The same goes for a militia. You can go and start your own private militia, but how are your neighbors going to look at that? Now, if you had town council. If the town council give it official sanction and form an official town militia, you're going to be in a much stronger position when you go talk to your neighbors, because now it's got the stamp of approval of the town council. So it's just like a fire department. If I just start my own volunteer fire department as just an individual person, I might get a few guys. But if it's established by the town or the county and it's staffed by volunteers, but it's under the authority of the county, you're going to get more support. This is the reality.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I mean
the bottom line is, when the crap hits the fan, what's going to count is who's on your buddy team, who's on your fire team, who's on your squad. And all the legality in all the world is not going to matter at all. But to get from here to there, to get as organized as possible, I think the smart way to go is first to start neighborhood watches. Okay? Yes, you're going to get more of your neighbors will respond to that and join it than if you were to knock on the door and say, hey, I'm starting a militia. How many guys are going to join that?
Yeah, it makes sense. People are more interested in protecting their own interests, and if you're
it's also the demonization of the term militia. So many of them, if you say, "Oh no, I can't do that," they're going to hide. So I don't care what you call it, just get it done.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes sense. Everything you're saying. So I'm curious. What are your thoughts or the official Oathkeeper position on the shooting of Michael Brown and the response by the rioters themselves?
Well, we have no official position on the shooting because I haven't seen all the friggin' evidence. You know,
Okay.
I don't know. I hear conflicting things. It sounds to me like he was going for the officer's gun. The officer responded, you know, at the window. From what I know, it seems like that was legitimate. After that, I haven't seen the evidence. I haven't seen everything that there was. So I don't really know. My gut tells me the guy charged him again and was going to try to beat him down and take his gun. But until I see all the evidence, which we haven't seen yet, I can't say. You know, what I don't like though is the reaction. Even if it was not a justified shooting, it doesn't give anyone the right to go burn down the whole friggin' town or loot and assault people. So, and I think the protesters, they did a massive fail by not policing their own. And especially in looking at this video of the stepfather screaming to the crowd, burn it down, not only did they fail to stop the violence, they actually incited it. He should be charged with incitement to commit arson.
Yeah, the father himself, he said burn it down. So, you know, he
well, it was his stepfather, right?
Yeah. Well, he should be charged with the incitement to riot at least, at minimum, if not,
incitement to arson. He said burn it down. He didn't say riot. He said burn this bitch down. So that's arson. Yeah,
exactly. He should definitely be held responsible. I mean, there comes a time when, you know, and this is going to sound funny, but free speech, that's great. You know, I'm 100% supporter of free speech, and I'm going to do something that I hate it when people do, and when they say, I totally support this, but, and then they say why they don't. But there's a difference between, you know, saying your opinion, speaking your mind, and inciting people to violence and to hurt people, destroy private property, and risk killing people. I mean, that is when it becomes a public safety issue, when your words become more than just words, and they become something of an incitement to danger on others. You know, and I think that people should be held responsible for that.
Well, I mean, you can. If a person is telling someone in a particular place and time, go do this, like right now, that's not protected speech. Mm-hmm. Now, if you say, hey, you know, there are occasions when violence is justified, you know, hypothetically, that's protected speech. If you say, go do this to this particular people, place, or thing right now, that's not protected. And that's what he did. He said, burn this down. And he meant that night, obviously, and that's what happened.
That's no different.
So, and we made it very clear that back in August we had an open letter to the governor, Nixon of Missouri, pointing out that they need to respect the rights of the people to protest and you know, peaceably assemble. And we pointed out all the things they're doing wrong. Tear gassing the whole crowd, rubber bullets being sprayed is wrong. But we also pointed out to the people in this open letter to the Ferguson community on Monday, in fact, that while they have a right to protest, and we agree and stand up for that, they have no right to damage property, to riot, or to commit arson. And they have an obligation to stop that. I mean, we addressed the Ferguson veterans in particular and said, you have a duty and responsibility to establish neighborhood watches and police your own. If you don't want the cops to come into your neighborhoods with a heavy hand, you had better take care of the thugs in your own neighborhoods and put a stop to it. And that's what we're going to tell them when I fly there tomorrow. That's the message is folks, you better put a stop to this because you're getting a black eye. All over the country, everyone's looking at this and going, okay, this is what they're really all about. And all that does is feed racial discrimination and divide and conquer the American people along race lines. But I think what's going on is we're being set up that the powers that be want Ferguson to be as bad as possible so they can get a race war or so they can get, you know, a heavy-handed, people calling and demanding a heavy-handed response and clamping down and militarization of our police, or to make the locals look so incompetent that everyone supports federalization of the police, the appointment of a national police czar, which is what the Black Caucus in Congress has proposed. They want Obama to establish a so-called police czar to run police departments, which is entirely unconstitutional. So regardless of which one of those it is, this is a setup of the American people. What they do not want is people taking the matters in their own hands and protecting their own property. So that is exactly what we need to do.
Exactly. We have to be our own police. We have to take our own personal responsibility for our own safety. And I say it all the time that the police, they actually have no obligation, no legal obligation to protect you. That was deemed through the Constitution, or I'm sorry, through the Supreme Court and a verdict. So
yeah, there's been multiple court cases that say they have no legal duty to any individual, just to society as an aggregate. And so, and of course, they have no capacity either. It's not a cop where I'm at right now. I'm in the middle of the friggin' woods in Montana. The police are like 45 minutes away. There's no cop with you either right now. Police can very rarely, if ever, stop a crime. All they really can do, that's why they shouldn't be called first responders. They're not first responders, they're second responders. They show up afterwards to draw a chalk line around your body and do an investigation to try to apprehend the person who did it. They don't stop jack. And in Ferguson, even with 3 months of preparedness time, they had 3 months to get ready, and they still couldn't stop the arsonists. Of course, I think it's intentional. I'm not blaming the average beat cop or the average, guy at the bottom of the totem pole. They're frustrated. They told our guys there that, hey, we agree with you. We know what you're saying is right, but the powers that be aren't going to listen. That's what they're telling us. So, point being, though, even if they had the best of intentions, there's just not enough cops. And this is the wisdom of the founders. They understood that. That's why they said what they tell us in the Second Amendment. It is the security of a free state, being necessary for the security of a free state. It's necessary. You're not going to be free or secure if you don't have it. You've got to have a people's militia. Have to. Nothing else is going to cut it. During the Rodney King riots, the police were outnumbered, wound up fleeing the area, leaving everybody there on their own. That's why the Korean shop owners had to get up on their roofs with shotguns and rifles and protect their own property. And now we see it again in Ferguson, same situation. Those who are armed are left alone. Those who are not are preyed upon. Just Absolutely. The way it is.
So as far as some of the other accomplishment that the Oathkeepers have done, I know you guys were involved somewhat in the Bundy Ranch incident, and I'm curious if you could tell me what your involvement was and some other things that you guys have accomplished in the time that you've been around.
Well, when that situation happened, our big concern was that the Bundy family were going to be wacoed. I mean, the indicators were, not good. We had snipers on them. They had, militarized police coming in there, federal officers, and it looked to us like it was heading for another Waco-type incident. And so our veterans, along with other veterans from around the country, just said, we're not going to put up with that. So we went there and imposed ourselves and said, well, if you're going to try to wake up these people, you got to come through us first. And that was the mindset of everyone there. We went there primarily in a support function. We hoped that there would be competent leadership on the ground. Unfortunately, that didn't materialize. There was too much infighting and a bunch of wannabe warlords competing for position. And so this is a big lesson for us out of that, is what you need is competent local leadership. Once again, that's why we're focusing on our CPT program quite a bit. We want people in their own local areas to develop strong, local organized leadership that they've vetted, that you've seen over time, that you see how they behave during a natural emergency, some kind of weather emergency, things that aren't quite as crucial. You figure out who's competent, who's not. You organize your own community so you provide your own leadership team. That way you don't have to rely on unknown outsiders. If you just rely on people that just show up out of nowhere based on what they say they are, then you're going to be in trouble because you don't know them. So it's incredibly important, as the founders understood, town militias, county militias, that's the building blocks that gets you to the point of a competent state militia that has good leadership teams all the way down into the local towns. That's what the founders enjoyed. They, when they were getting ready for the conflict with the British, they already had established militias, right? Well, they made them stronger. They had more and more, training and organizing going on, and they got ready. We are facing an economic collapse coming up. We're facing a national government that has already gone off the rails constitutionally, is way beyond the bounds of the Constitution, and has demonstrated its intent to treat the American people like an occupied enemy nation. I mean, legally and infrastructure-wise, giving MRAPs to the cops, federalizing the police, all of that points to the same end, which is Nazi Germany in the United States. The same kind of stuff that happened there. is starting to happen here. The same legal justifications, the same infrastructure is happening. Nationalization of our police, the turning of all the powers that were built up in the name of fighting Al-Qaeda, in the war on terrorism, are now swinging inward on us. And who do they consider the number one target? Is the American veteran and the American gun owner. And so, read the writing on the wall. You have got to have neighborhood watches, you've got to have posses, and you've got to have a militia. You've got to start working on that stuff and get that stuff ready so that you are able to, in your own community, to take care of yourselves. You can't count on people coming from across the nation to come help you. It should have taken veterans from all over the country to go to Bundy Ranch to put 200 guys on the ground. That's about how many were there, 200 or 300. It should have been able to be handled by the people of Clark County, Nevada alone. There's plenty of veterans in Clark County, Nevada. Or the people of Nevada. That's a pretty decent-sized state. Why couldn't they handle it themselves? Same goes for Ferguson. Why did it take volunteer Oathkeepers from all over, from Texas and Nebraska and Illinois and Iowa, came all the way there to go do that? To guard 4 businesses. That's ridiculous. The people of Ferguson should have had it handled. Mm-hmm. Just, I'm saying? You can't rely on outsiders to come help you. You got to be ready to help yourself.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. That is a big part of the Oathkeepers, and I think it's important to note that that the government has taken a lot of this responsibility out of our hands. That they've made it so people rely on the government to protect them. Just like it's the same kind of welfare mentality where people are on the government's teat, so they decide, it's just easier for me not to work, the government will take care of me. It's the same thing as far as personal protection. And I think this is a very dangerous situation to get into. We start talking about police state situations, and I've always thought, you don't build a police state unless you intend to do something with it, and the whole process of them taking that authority out of the people's hands, and even the desire to protect themselves, and making people rely on the government to protect them. I think it's a very deceptive situation. I'm very concerned about growing police state, the federal Leviathan gaining more power, and I love what you're saying. Everything you're saying is resonating with me quite a bit, because I love the individual responsibility, people taking ownership for their community and their own protection, their livelihoods, things along those lines. It's not just individualism too, but it's the communities coming together to protect those individual properties or rights, things along those lines. I love that, and everything you're saying is resonating with me significantly. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on President Obama in general?
Well, I think he's the worst president we've ever had. Maybe him and Bush are tied, but I think he's actually going to eclipse Bush, which I didn't think was possible. George Bush was pretty atrocious. And I know there's probably plenty of conservatives listening and going, what are you talking about? Hey, man, he opened the door for all this crap. He created DHS. He started the doctrine of U.S. citizens being held as unlawful combatants under the laws of war, and he paved the way. Now Obama and doubling down on it. He's out-bushing Bush. So I think he's probably the most destructive president we've ever had. We'll see. We'll see what he winds up doing to this country. But I just want to make it clear that it's not just the Democrats. We're in bad shape. If only it were that, it'd be wonderful if all he had to worry about was one political party being traitors to the Constitution. But you got both parties being traitors.
Absolutely. Yeah, and both parties are loaded with progressives. The gradual usurpation of power. The slippery slope fallacy that they claim. They claim it's not a or it is a fallacy. That there is no such thing as a slippery slope. But their very definition of their movement, the progressive movement, is to incrementally make these changes and increase governmental power. So that is their definition, the slippery slope. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on the executive amnesty, and actually your opinion as a lawyer. Do you believe that Obama had the constitutional authority to declare amnesty for 4.5 million illegals?
No, absolutely not. And I wrote an editorial on that on our site saying that he should be impeached.
Yes, sir. And as far as the impeachment process, one of the things that I always hear all the time is people are like, well, I don't want Biden to be in office, and I also don't want the Republicans to get blamed for a governmental shutdown or for the process of going through the impeachment. What do you have to say to people who say that kind of stuff?
That the Republicans or Congress in general has an absolute duty to remove an unconstitutional president. It's about duty. I don't care whether or not you've got political arguments for or against it. It's their responsibility. And if they don't do it, then what's the next step? How do we get rid of this guy if they're not willing to do their duty? So constitutional impeachment is the first constitutional remedy. It's something Congress has in their hands to do right now. And, of course, before the elections, Republicans were like, well, we don't control the Senate, so we can't do this. Well, now they've won both houses. They got no more excuses. I would say use this as a litmus test. If they're not willing to impeach, then they need to go. Then they're gutless. And apparently, the word I'm getting from, you have Michelle Bachmann talking to Breitbart about how, in conference and in discussions, the Republican leadership are basically saying, oh, we're going to go ahead and just, grit our teeth and swallow this crap. So they're not going to do anything. So they need to be rooted out. If they're that spineless, what is the point of having a Republican majority in both houses of Congress if they won't do anything? There's no point to it. They need to purge him out of office.
Yeah, and what's the point of having
two parties? If Biden gets in, then you purge him out too, impeach him too. Exactly. Who cares? Impeach the whole damn lot of them. But that's the tool that's available to Congress right now, and they swore that oath. They better step up and do it. If they won't, purge them out.
I think it's despicable that they're more concerned about a blame game than answering lawlessness, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lawless executive who's usurping the power of the very document that gave him power in the first place. He's going above and beyond what he's authorized to do, what he's able to do, and because of this, these guys are they're concerned with being the bad guys. They're the ones doing the lawful process to answer this kind of lawlessness, and they're concerned about being looked at wrong. A lot
of these Republicans love the cheap labor from illegal aliens. That's the other thing. When we're dealing with down in Texas right now, we're planning on going down there and guarding some ranches against the cartels. There are Texas ranches being overwhelmed by the cartels and being taken over by the cartels and intimidated by them and threatened with death. And now there's ranchers even moving their families off their ranches. And so just as the cartels have taken over the ranches on the Mexican side, they're now doing it to the American side. But here's the dirty problem down there is that the cartel owns a lot of the legislators and town councilmen and county commissioners and all these border towns. They own them. They're being paid off by the cartel. And the ones that aren't, a lot of these friggin' GOP fat cats get off on having cheap labor. So they support it. So once again, you've got traitors on both sides of the aisle in Congress and down in the state legislatures and in the governor's offices and right down into the town councils and local towns. It's horrible. So same problem. Just like in Ferguson, you got a corrupt chief of police there, Chief Belmar, who is trying to stop us from keeping people from being burned alive. You've got a corrupt governor who's doing everything he can to not stop the rioters and the looters. Same problem you had down in Texas. You've got from top to bottom, from the president all the way down to local town councilmen. They don't care. They're fine with the cartel coming across. They're fine with this. So it's going to be up to the people, us, to stop this, and especially you veterans. You're going to have to go down there and guard those ranches. You're going to have to go and stop the arsonists in Ferguson. You're going to have to be ready to do the same thing in your own towns, too, when the crap hits the fan and it comes to you. Like, where are you at right now? Where do you live?
We're broadcasting from Vancouver, Washington.
Okay. You guys know, the cartel has taken over the growing operations up in your hills, right? You guys know that, don't you? They're all over Oregon. Up in the Washington State, the Mexican cartels are coming into your areas and taking over the growing of marijuana. So they're right there,
That doesn't surprise me. But yeah, this is something that I actually did not know about. But if I had some information, I would love to get with you about this and try to find out something that we can do out here as like county Oathkeepers.
I'll tell you that the Oathkeepers down in Josephine County, Oregon, down there with Sheriff McCurgan. Tom McCurgan and the Sheriff Gilbertson down there, they'll tell you the grow operations are being taken over by the Mexican cartels. Not that it matters who the bad guys are necessarily, but just let you guys know. It's it's not like you can just say, okay, I'm fine where I'm at. No. It's like I said before, it's a full spectrum assault. They will use the enemies of the Constitution are going to use whatever they can. They'll use MS-13. They'll use the cartels. They'll use any of these street gangs as force multipliers. The new Black Panther Party, La Raza is getting federal money, millions of dollars worth of federal money and grants coming to La Raza to start a race war in the Southwest and try to divide Americans along racial lines, Mexican versus, brown versus white. It's the same crap, whether it's La Raza or the new Black Panthers. They get full support from the federal government. Yeah. We don't. Yeah. We scrape by on donations and dues from individuals. La Raza gets millions of bucks in federal money. Why is that? Well, there you go. That should tell you, what's going on in this country. The racist, La Raza means the race. So the racists who want to have all Mexicans hate all whites and vice versa, and the black nationalists and Farrakhan or in the Black Panther Party the same way, they get full support. They get private little conversations with the president. Those of us who are not racist and want Americans to respect the Constitution and just live under the American creed of the Declaration of Independence and natural rights and the Constitution, we don't get anything from them except being designated as terrorists.
Yes, sir.
The communists did the long march through our institutions. The Marxists did that. And they marched right through education, right through the legal system, right through the political system, and they're sitting on both sides of the aisle in Congress right now. They've got it. So, but what they don't have yet is they don't have us. They don't have our hearts and minds. They do not have the military in their pocket. There are a lot of guys in the military that are still traditional Americans, and all of us veterans too. So that's the silver lining. Is you can look at Bundy Ranch, you can look at what's going on right now in Ferguson, and the guys that showed up to guard buildings there. That shows you that we are still not yet done. Okay, we're not completely friggin' fried. We still have a chance. But just letting you guys know, because you all sat on your asses, and myself included, for multiple generations and let this crap happen. That's why we're at where we're at now. We're in a bad space.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Stewart, we have some listeners that have some questions they want to call in. We got to take a quick break.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Around and we'll have our listeners ask you some questions when we get back from this break.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay. All right, everybody. We'll be right back with Stewart Rhodes. And after this commercial break, we're going to take some of your calls. So if you would like to ask Stewart a question, the number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. We'll be right back.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
And we're back. We had Stewart Rhodes on the line here, and he's the founder of the Oathkeepers organization. He's also the director. If you guys have anything at all that you would like to ask, feel free to give us a call. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. So I have Stewart on the line. Hey, Stewart, you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. We have James, who has a question for you. He's a resident of St. Louis. Go for it, James.
Hey, Stewart, how's it going this evening?
Hey, what's going on, buddy? What's up?
Okay, I'm doing well. Hey, what are you guys actually kind of hoping to accomplish there in Ferguson, during your visit?
Keeping people from burned to death?
Right.
We've had multiple... Huh? What?
Yeah, I got that part.
Okay.
Right. I'm just kind of wondering
like I said, started neighborhood watches. That's what I'm going to be doing there.
Right. I got you. Yeah, because, I could understand where you guys were coming from, and, with having, some of the guys out there being armed, but I think the elevated positions were kind of worrying the residents.
We had no complaints from the guys we were protecting. I mean, who are you talking to?
Just residents out there. I've been going out there since day 2, since the day after the shooting.
What did they have to say?
Well, one of the things is the outside agitators coming in. The citizens are getting kind of, tired of it all.
Right. I mean, we're not there to agitate. We're just there protecting property.
Well,
do they want Natalie's cakes and more burned to the ground? I mean, that's just the bottom question.
Absolutely not.
Really.
Absolutely not. But Natalie's shop has already been bought and paid for by now. That's all been taken care of. So that damage has been.
Well, sure, but she got donations to pay for it. But does that mean they want?
I understand.
People live in the apartments above her too. Those are homes.
Right. I understand.
Uh-huh.
But the tactics.
Well, what do you want us to do? You want us to not be on the roof? That's the best place to be. How do you stop a fire? If a Molotov cocktail is thrown on the roof, how do we put it out if we're not on the roof?
You don't let them throw it to begin with. I think if you guys...
Well, sure, but they burned down 20 buildings. How do you want us to stop the fire without being on the roof?
Well, like I said, I think you stop it from being thrown first.
Well, how do you do that? So how do you stop them from being thrown?
You work the crowds.
Work the crowds, and that's great. I mean, the cops should be doing that. And I'm in total support. Like I said, the protesters should be policing their own, but they're not. That's the problem. Where are they? How come? Why aren't the people in the community right now stopping the arsonists? So that's my goal. I would love to see them all get involved and take care of their own. Like I said, I don't want to have to come in from out of town to go do this, but we're trying to lead by example to show them the right way. Because the police are not getting it done, the National Guard's not getting it done. The people themselves need to do it.
Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at who's holding the leash on the police and the Guard. Who is that?
Well, the governor, for one.
Well,
it's his responsibility. He's the commander-in-chief of the friggin' National Guard.
Right, and the other guys now is the DOJ's in town. DOJ's in town, the FBI.
Oh yeah, right. Well, it's also Chief Belmer. I mean, who Chief Belmer's the one that sent his goon squad to come order our guys to leave the premises because they don't have a security license. Even though there's unpaid volunteers, it's just absurd.
Right.
I mean, I don't understand why they don't want.
I understand.
Go ahead. Maybe you have some insight. I don't.
But where we're going is, what we've got is. And if you've listened to some of the police wives, at least the one wife that actually did an interview on Fox 2, she's like, hey, it seems like those that are in town have a whole different agenda instead of putting us to rest. The police are being held back.
You said who has the agenda?
This is the FBI, the feds, the federal agencies that are in town seem to be on a different page.
They're putting pressure
going on.
I think that's right. I mean, the rank and file guys and the average cop on the street they haven't got a problem with what we're doing, and it's coming down from the top. And I think it's orchestrated. They don't want this to be. They want to make it as bad as possible for their own agenda.
Right.
So
right.
I mean, you live right there in St. Louis. I mean.
Yeah. I've been, like I said, I've been up here since day two. I've been keeping up on this.
If you can encourage all of the people that are like leaders in the community to get together, they need to get together and solve this problem themselves. They really do.
Yeah, well, they think they are.
Well, they're not stopping I'm talking about the arson. I mean, it takes away whatever the
and they're looking
protest,
and they're looking to the police for that, and they're looking to the police.
But that's not happening now. So the police aren't doing it, and so it gives the protesters a black eye, right? I mean, if you have looting and arson going on, it takes the focus away from what they're protesting.
Let's take a look at the groups. I tell you what, when I'm out there, I see, kind of two distinct groups: those that are peaceful and those that are not. All right, let's take a look at this the second police car that was burned. Okay, if you watch that, that police car was just sitting over there on the side of the road minding its own business, right? Right after the crowd broke, a small crowd broke off, and they went straight to that police car and torched it. Now, that was an older police car, a Crown Vic, sitting there off to the side of the road, waiting to be torched. And it looked like those guys knew exactly where it was.
So where you
I haven't
going?
got any doubt that there's manufactured. What you're saying is that was set up, right?
Oh yeah, just like you said, it's orchestrated.
Right. No doubt. But hey, it comes right back down to our responsibility, right? We have to stop this.
Right.
We have to do it.
Right. Well, this is. I mean, we're trying to take this down the road where we need to be, but we got to first identify who it is that we need to be watching for.
Well,
okay.
I'll tell you what. But the common denominator is that we, the people, have got to be out there in person, guarding the property, and not just the property, but the lives of the people who live there. I don't care. You can have different opinions on the shooting, different opinions on everything else. We should agree on that and take care of that. That's what has to happen.
Yes, sir.
And I don't trust the police. I don't trust the feds. I don't trust the governor. I don't trust any of those people. And I think there's a lot of good reasons not to trust them. But the people themselves, that's why, all the more reason why. They've got to stop these outside agitators. They've got to put a stop to the agent provocateurs, whether they're feds or local or whatever they are. They got to be on the ground in person to do that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And James, thanks for calling in. I do appreciate it. Stewart,
James, I'll see you down there. If you come over, we'll be out in front of the building. I'll be there like Tuesday. I'll probably be there late tomorrow night, but definitely Tuesday morning I'll be there. Come out and say hi.
Awesome. And Stewart, what are some other websites that people can get involved and help out in any other stuff that you guys got going on down there, and just Oathkeepers in general?
Well, I mean, if they want to come help us protest and possibly help us guard, protect, they can just head for Ferguson, I guess. But when we're talking about people who want to be protesting, I don't care who you are. Come out and wave a sign and come support the right of the people to peacefully assemble, and also the right of the people not to be burned to death. And that'd be a nice little protest. Come out and help us. But as far as guarding places, we'll be more selective about that. You better have some good experience and training. Like our request laid out, you can go look on oathkeepers.org and find the article on what we're doing down there. It lays out all the different skill sets we're looking for. What we really need in particular are cameramen. We need some embedded cameramen. We need people with GoPros. We need good video that can film at night. We just want to be able to document whatever's going on. There's been a lot of stuff that we wish we could have caught on camera that we didn't. Like these arson teams that are orchestrated, three-person teams working together, like a well-disciplined military team running down the street, loading Molotovs as they go. So they're not running with Molotovs in their hands. They have them. They get in the middle of a little group, so you can't see them unless you're above them on the rooftops. That's when you can see what they're doing. But in the middle of this little group of people, there'll be a team of three who assemble the Molotov right before they throw it. And so, otherwise you can't tell what they're doing. They're just a bunch of protesters walking down the street. But in the middle of them, every time, there's this little team. So I'm not saying every time there's protesters, they have a Molotov knife-throwing team. I'm just saying that's what we saw was orchestrated teams hiding inside of a group of, quote-unquote protesters. So, I mean, the protesters who are legit have got to police their own, have got to identify and push out these outside agitators. All it's doing is just discrediting anything that they're protesting about. It makes them all look like they're lawless. And this is not, I'm sure it's not what they want.
Yes, sir. And as far as for people who are looking to actually join the Oathkeepers, the organization itself, where can they go? And also for people out there who may want to swear an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, but didn't serve their time in the military, are you guys accepting non-military veterans or non-law enforcement officers?
They can join as an associate member if they want to, and they can just go to our oathkeepers.org, and there's a button to join. And we're having a special right now of like $29. It's like a Facebook special, but anyone can do it. Just click on join, and it's $29 instead of $40. So if you want to join, it's fine. We can always use new members. But the big picture, folks, is that you have to take personal responsibility. I mean, yes, the politicians, like you were saying earlier, the political class in this country has cultivated this almost like a welfare type dependency. You're right, when it comes to our own security, but we have to go look in the mirror. That's the other person responsible is us. We have to be, take personal responsibility for our failures in the past, but then from now on, the mark of a true patriot is somebody who says, yes, I was wrong, I've neglected my responsibilities, but now I'm going to fix this. And the ground zero is you've got to take care of your own, and you've got to take care of each other. You cannot be isolated and afraid to go out there and step outside your door and go talk to your neighbors. You've got to go talk to your neighbors and organize neighborhood defense. Absolutely. Well,
Stewart, we got to wrap up the segment. It's been an absolute honor to have you on the show, and thank you so much for everything you're doing out there in Ferguson. I'm sure that all the private property owners out there are very grateful to have you guys there, and I hope you travel safe. I hope everything works out down in Ferguson.
Good to go, man.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on again. Take care, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, guys. At this point, we're going to cut to another commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to enter into the next segment of the show that we like to call the Mack Attack. Don't go anywhere.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
And we're back. I appreciate you all sticking with us. If you have something on your mind, please give us a call. The number of the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. Anyway, we're about ready to enter into the next segment of the show. But before I do, during the commercial break, you probably heard the commercial about that's actually my wife. She's a graphic designer. If you guys are interested and you have anything that you need done as far as flyers, business cards, something along those lines, any kind of graphic design work, I know a lot of our listeners are activists, and they go out and they'll hand out pamphlets and things along that line. If you guys have anything like that you need done, feel free to message her, my wife. I believe her email is latashaworley@gmail.com. Feel free to message her. She can give you some affordable rates, and she's really good. You know, she's really she's done everything for our show. So every logo, everything, all of our graphical work, she has done it all. So first of all, thank you, wife of mine. I sure do appreciate her. But she's quick. She's real quick at everything she does too. So if you have anything that you need done, feel free to hit her up for that. She'd be happy to help you guys out. And all right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next segment here. We're going to enter into the Mack attack, and there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to get to. So here we go.
It's time for the Mack attack.
All right, this is a segment of the show where I talk about outrageous events in the news. If you want to join the conversation, please give us a call. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. So let's talk about Ferguson. What's going on the ground? What is the situation? And why is this happening? What is the reason for this? Let's start from the beginning. All right, the grand jury decided not to indict Officer Darren Wilson for the situation that happened with the Michael Brown shooting. So what immediately started happening? Shots got fired, businesses got destroyed, looted. There was private property being burnt to the ground, being destroyed, private property. Some of this stuff, like police cars and public property, was also destroyed, but private property is being targeted. What does this have anything to do with Officer Darren Wilson, the police department, the government, any of these things that these people are angry about, the so-called racism that happens, the targeting of minorities by police departments? What do these local business owners have to do with that? Nothing. The answer is this is about opportunism. This is about the lowest form of scum using a situation to their own advantage. This is disgusting. There's a difference between protesting and rioting. This is not protesting. This is rioting. Violence is not civil disobedience. Destroying people's private property is not you standing up for somebody's rights or against bigotry or racism. That is not the same thing. Those are two entirely different things. I'm all for, individual rights, equal freedom, everyone being treated equally, given the same equal shot. But you're not entitled to anything. You're not entitled to your neighbor's dollars. You're not entitled to destroy your neighbor's property. There's no entitlement there. It doesn't matter what just happened to you. You don't lash out and destroy your neighborhood. You don't do that. This, to me, it seems like, because this has been something that I feel that has been wanted from this administration. Obama seemed to have wanted this to happen. I believe that it's something along the lines of a pressure valve for angry citizens, people that are just angry and unhappy, people that are so disappointed at this administration. To me, it seems like this is more of the Orwellian version of 2 minutes of hate, where people just get together and rage about whatever. They're angry, and they need an outlet for this anger that they have going on, and I think it's something along those lines. And obviously that rage can be used politically to get people to call and clamor for more governmental involvement in our lives, more militarization of police, martial law, all of these things. So what will exactly be accomplished from this rioting? in Ferguson? What will be accomplished? In my opinion, no good at all is going to come from this situation. None whatsoever. You know, do these rioters, do they believe, or even the protesters that are allowing the rioters to become violent, destroy property, do they actually believe that this situation in Ferguson is going to cause the police or the government to lose any sleep at all? Do you think that they're staying up at night, other than when they have to be out there on the streets? Do you think that they're staying up at night saying, "Oh man," especially the people that matter, the head honchos, the people that actually have any kind of power to do anything, not the guys out there actually on the street trying to do the right thing, protect the private property? Do you think that the Leviathan is going to give a crap about you destroying some store or apartment complex? No, they don't care. Because it plays right into their hand. You know, we keep being told that Black Lives Matter, as if anyone at all has been saying that they do not matter. Who has been saying this? Who at all? And by the way, I see we have a call here. I'm going to get to you in a second. We're being told that Black Lives Matter and that, you know, this kind of thing happens all the time. The Michael Brown shooting, this racism in our police departments, that this kind of thing just happens all the time, and Black Lives Matter, and because of that, it's okay to go out and destroy private property. Well, what about the lives of the store owners? The lives of those people whose livelihood depends on that store? The livelihood that these protesters or rioters, as they should be more accurately referred to, are destroying. They're destroying the livelihood of these business owners by burning them to the ground. Do their lives not matter? Apparently not to these people. These people apparently think that their rage, their outlet for this anger, or their pure opportunism is more important than the livelihood of somebody who owns this personal, private property. They're literally destroying their own community. And the thing about it is, too, even when you destroy public property, if you're not even talking about private property, if they didn't attack any private property, if they just destroyed their own police stations and other public buildings or public property, that's still not a smart idea. That's your own community. You don't burn it to the ground. That's paid for out of your pocket to begin with, unless you don't pay taxes, unless you're part of the welfare system, and maybe that's why they have so much time to be out there in the first place. This is their community that they're destroying. The public stuff, it belongs to them too. They're destroying their own property, everyone's property. It's not just theirs, but it's everyone's. So why are they attaching themselves to this situation? You know, I want to get to that in a minute here, but first I want to take this call. We have Jackson on the line. He wants to discuss the movement in Ferguson. What's on your mind?
Hey, how are you doing? I see a lot of groups coming together. It looks like the welfare community, those who are in gangs, and it seems like a socialist, communist movement is also, or the progressive movement is also attaching itself on the backs of this incident. Sorry, my phone's, the battery's low. I don't know if you could hear the beeping, but
that's fine.
I see a lot of people are trying to capitalize off of this Ferguson incident to cause disruption. We have a justice system, and if America is a republic, and I think most people honestly believe we're a democracy, and a democracy, by definition, is ruled by mob or ruled by the majority. And Ferguson seems like the perfect example of rule by mob. The majority of the people there, at least the ones out in the streets, burning stuff down and yelling at the police officers, and we have a justice system in place. And while it may not be perfect, they're trying. I seen a meme on Facebook how it said they were trying to make Michael Brown a martyr. You know, the guy just robbed a store. It's considered a strong arm robbery, not an armed robbery, but the guy was a walking criminal. He really was. And like Stewart had said earlier, he didn't know all the facts. Neither do I. Maybe the city does have a history of harassing young black kids or black people, but the way they're handling it isn't the way to go. They're not handling it correctly. They're losing their entire voice by the way they're handling it. And is what really upsets me is there's a lot of side groups, communists, socialists, the liberals, and definitely the progressives that are all attaching themselves to this incident, and we're not getting proper responses from way up top. Heck, we have Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder not say inciting it, but they are not stopping it. They're not putting it where it needs to be. It's lack of leadership. It's pathetic. Stewart Rhodes is right.
We're at a point in time right now in our country when we have, a black attorney general, we have a black president. These should all be amazing watershed moments for our country. This should have brought us together. It should have brought the last remnants of any kind of racial tension together. That's right. And that's what I hope for. I mean, I didn't vote for Obama. I didn't support him. I still don't. I don't think he's the right man for the job. I wish, there's so many other people that I wish would have been the first black president. However, I acknowledge the fact that this is a watershed moment. I mean, it's something so important, and I wanted it to. I really hoped that he would be a good president. I did. I didn't think he would, but I hoped that I would be proven wrong. And he's done more in his 6 years in office to set us back. Race relations have been set back 60 years now. It's at the highest point I've ever seen in my life. Most people 2 years ago, 3 years ago, probably wouldn't even put racism or racial tension anywhere near a top 100 list of problems in America. And now, I guarantee you it's at least in top 10 in a lot of people's minds. What do you think about that?
I think the white people, and not all white people have been racist. Not all white people have owned slaves. It was just the elite, rich white folks who were able to own slaves. So even all white people seem to be paying a price for these elite, rich white folks who thought that it was right. Not everybody always thought it was right. So we really need to get that out on the table too. But what I see is a growing race hate of the blacks now for whites. The tables have been turned, and it wasn't right when the whites were the ones acting violent against the blacks, and it's not right today with the blacks acting violent against the whites. We need to start arresting people like Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Eric Holder, anybody who incites this this race baiting, this race hating. It's really died down. It really has. But it's this new black president, Obama, and I did vote for him first term. With a lot of the hope and change, but Stewart is right. This is long before Obama has came into office. The Bushes started, but definitely George W. Bush with the Patriot Act and all the other things that he's put in place. They're working in cahoots together. We're at a moment. Go ahead.
It has absolutely nothing to do with parties. It's about movements, and as you were saying, it's the Marxist, communist, socialism, even the anarchists. They all flock together in the same crew. This is essentially progressivism, and that's the problem.
Right.
It's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's progressivism, and the issue is
right.
They are in both parties. So Bush,
right.
he was a progressive actually because he. I mean, he's big government. He's a big government guy. So, he did so much to create a bigger federal Leviathan, this echelon of the NDAA and the Patriot Act, all these different things. He set it up and then handed it over to Obama, who's done a lot of stuff with it. And you do not build a police state. You do not build a system of control unless you plan on using it. I do not trust anyone who says, I know I have the authority to assassinate American citizens, but don't worry. I'm not going to use it. I just don't trust that.
No, we've allowed ourselves, the American citizens who are here, to be treated like the terrorists. Look, here's what I want to point out. Most of these liberal progressives, they have absolutely no idea what they're asking for. When our forefathers came to America, when they came here, they understood that they had to set up a branch of government that would hinder the very government that they just ran from. They looked at all the different types and forms of government. They looked at monarchy, oligarchy, Democrat, Republican, anarchy. They knew none of these governments worked except a republic, and that's why they chose a republic government, because they knew that anarchy, no man could be free, because they would be forced to watch their own home and protect their land, and so they knew that a certain amount of government is necessary. They didn't want a government that would be ruled by the rich oligarchies or the aristocrats, and they surely didn't want a king. Some of them had tried to make George Washington their king, and he refused because he understood where they knew where that would lead them. So the idea is people, all these progressives and socialists and communists, they're using anarchy, but is what's going to end up happening is they're going to have a dictator. They're pushing all of us into a dictator. And those who want anarchy, people will be murdered on the streets at will because of different factions and different groups. Our main problem in America is we have far too many governments happening at the same time, and the line is getting blurred. We need to get back to the Constitution. We need to do away with the further amendments, anything past the 10th, and just keep it simple. The first 10 amendments.
Jackson, let's ask you real fast here, because you brought up something that I talk about very frequently. Are you familiar with the term useful idiot?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we are seeing now, and this is a very common tactic within communism, is they have used first of all, they use anarchists to create a situation like in Ferguson. They say, we're for you guys, anarchy. Let's bring them here, and then these guys create problems. They start rioting, start looting, and then the socialists and the communists, they get together and say, okay, we've used these anarchists how we've wanted. We've got what we've wanted out of these guys. Let's move them to the side. Then they bring in the socialists, and the socialists work their way up and to build up that socialist government. And socialist governments, they lead to communist governments, and eventually the socialists, they stop being useful too, and the communists just take over. And they're done
away with. All exactly. The socialists, you're right. All the socialists that helped put the communists in power, are just done away with. Look at history. That's why they say history is so important for people to study. Look at Rome. Rome was a republic, and then eventually it turned into a democracy, and then everybody expected government to take care of it. And I'm going to be honest. I'm going to put this right between the eyes. Government cannot afford to take care of everyone. So what do people think is going to happen when everybody's reliant and dependent on the government? People are going to have to be eliminated, and that's what it leads to. All the transition we're turning that we're going into is that government is going to take care of us. It's the biggest lie ever. It's been perpetrated on other nations in other countries before.
In China,
government cannot take care of cannot take care of people.
in China, they did exactly what you're talking about. They switched over to the pure communism system. They did what's called, this is underneath Mao, the Great Leap Forward, where millions of Chinese people were literally exterminated. And they refer to that in the history books as the Great Leap Forward. And you hear throughout all the progressive terminology, we're leaning forward, as NBC would like you to believe. You're leaning forward. This is all that same thing. It's progressive mentality. It ultimately leads to communism. It always ends up turning on those who got them there in the first place, and the elites just take control. There's less less for the people to get involved. It's more of a top-down management system instead of the people. Being the people who are willing the government. And again, any government that doesn't govern by the consent of the people is illegitimate, period.
That's right. But Dave, people need to really look at the systems we have in place. Look at the lobbying system. That's an oligarchy system. That is a system of the aristocrats or the rich voting with money to get. The lobbyists pay money to get laws enacted that actually work against the people. That system shouldn't even be allowed in a constitutional republic, but it's happening. So that's one way the oligarchy system is happening. Our welfare system is a socialist system. Now, I'm not saying there are people out there who actually need welfare. I'm not talking about those who need it. And I want to make it clear, there are those who are riding the system who are being rewarded for having more children when the working class is being thrown into extinction to where they can only have one or two kids. They're not even replacing their own family members. Eventually, the working class is not going to have the money to be able to pay government for government to give to the welfare class. So we're being shoved into socialism. That's a socialist system. So there's so many forms, and it's all done through these systems. We have to call them for what they are. They put names on them that totally confuse the situation. Responsible parenting, the Patriot Act, and it's far from these things. Lobbying, it's far. We have to look back at these systems and rename them and call them for what they are. If we're going to try to communicate what's actually happening to the American people.
Well said. Yes, sir. Well, I sure do appreciate you giving us a call, Jackson. At this point, guys, we're going to go ahead and cut to our last commercial break of the show. And when we come back, I want to move a little further into this situation with Ferguson, the actual facts of the case. I want to talk about this with you guys and break it down. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back after these messages.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LAGOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
We're back. If you want to join today's conversation, please do give us a call. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that is 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com and let us know what's on your mind. Anyway, when we last left, we were talking about the situation in Ferguson. I want to go back into kind of a Mack attack segment here and finish this up. But I want to talk a little bit more about this. And by the way, first and foremost, guys, if you're listening today and you like the show and everything, I would certainly appreciate it if you would follow us here on blogtalkradio.com/OnTheMoveShow, so you can find more information about our future broadcasts. We broadcast every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so you can find us every week. I'm pretty reliable. I'm usually here about 95% of the time. So unless there's some kind of situation that I can't broadcast, I do. So. Anyway, also feel free to check out our website, OnTheMoveShow.com. We got a bunch of original content from, stuff from our YouTube channel, lots of material on there. If you guys are interested, I have a lot of activism things that I've done. You may not be familiar if you're a new listener, but, I'm in the middle of a legal battle against an unlawful arrest that was perpetrated on me from the Vancouver Police Department for open carry. And I have a video of the actual arrest and some updates regarding my court cases and everything. And right now we're actually in the appeal process on that. So if you don't know anything about me and today you were just tuning in to hear Stewart Rhodes, you may be interested in some of that. Feel free to check out our material on youtube.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can find out a lot of other stuff that we got going on. And, I also do like book reviews and things like that. So if you're interested, feel free to check that out. Anyway. Moving forward here, I want to talk more about this situation in Ferguson. So, like I was saying, they've attached themselves to this one case, this one situation, and we have to ask ourselves why. Why are they attaching to this situation? Because let's look at the facts of the case. I've actually read the 70-something pages of the report that was given to the grand jury. These are the facts of the case, okay? So this is why they decided not to indict. I've actually read the facts. Now, if you dispute the facts, okay, then that's fine. We can have a conversation about that, but what evidence do you have? What is your proof other than just, you feel that it was like this? What evidence do you have? Because this is the actual evidence that was given. So we're told that Michael Brown, he was this gentle giant. He was 6'4", 292 pounds. He's a big guy, a very big guy. And we're told that he was the most gentle guy in the world. He's perpetrated to be, basically as harmless as possible. All right. Yet he was in fact involved in a strong-arm robbery not long, very, very shortly before this incident with Officer Darren Wilson. So this gentle giant involved in a strong-arm robbery, right there, those are facts, caught on video, all right? Caught on video in a strong-arm robbery. These are facts of the case. Now, if there's so much racism, so much hate, so many police departments doing this kind of thing, i.e. executing a black man in the middle of a street in broad daylight, if this happens all the time, as we're told, because the hands up, don't shoot, hands up, don't shoot. Apparently we're told that this happens all the time, every day. If it does happen, why pick this case? Why this situation? We have a stepfather who's calling for them to burn this place down, inciting riots, inciting arson. Why this case? If it happens so much, find a better case. There has to be something better than this, right? Because if it's happening all over the country, I would argue because this doesn't happen very often. This situation, and we'll get more into the facts here. I'll go through them a little bit further. But this situation, why would an officer not only want to kill somebody that they have no information about, they don't know, why would they want to execute them in front of witnesses, broad daylight, in the middle of the street, supposedly hands up? Why would they want to do that, kill that individual, and literally destroy their life? Why? I would argue that they would not, and it doesn't happen as often as we are led to believe. or perhaps at all. Anyway, the situation, Michael Brown's walking down the street. He's with his accomplice in the strong-arm robbery. The police officer tells him to get out of the street as he's driving by. He was on his way somewhere, and he says, hey, get out of the middle of the street. Michael Brown basically shrugs him off. Then he gets a call saying that there was a strong-arm robbery just a little bit away from where he's currently located and that they stole cigars. Well, the officer, Darren Wilson, looks at Michael Brown's hands, and he sees cigars, a box of cigars, the display kind that's in the hand of Michael Brown. And then he starts to question him about it. Michael Brown, the officer tries to get out of his car. Michael Brown slams the door shut and begins punching the officer in the face. There's evidence of this because the officer's eye socket was almost completely smashed in. There was some kind of, and I don't remember the trauma name, perhaps somebody who is a little bit familiar with medical stuff would know, but there was severe blunt trauma that was conducted on Darren Wilson's face. Then Michael Brown apparently attempted to grab the officer's gun, and during the struggle, the firearm went off at least once within the vehicle. At this point, he tries to leave. Michael Brown tries to leave. And the officer, he's trained to pursue. He's trained to not let this guy get away. Obviously, he just assaulted a police officer and is a suspect in a potential strong-arm robbery. So, obviously, he's not just going to let this go. It's his job to do this. So, he's trained to pursue. He gets out of his vehicle. His eye's smashed in. He probably can't see out of his left eye very well. And then at this point, he yells, halt. He's trying to get Michael Brown to stop. Michael Brown then turns around and bum rushes Officer Darren Wilson. Full steam. This individual, Michael Brown, 6'4", 292 pounds, already assaulted you and devastatingly rocked your eye socket to where you have severe damage. This so-called gentle giant is now charging full steam at you. You have to make a decision. Do you want to use lethal force? Do you think that this individual coming at you as they are, could they potentially kill you? Is lethal force something you should use? Police officers have around 2 seconds, roughly, to make these kind of decisions on average. 2 seconds. How would you feel making that kind of judgment call in 2 seconds? Most of us have never been in this situation. You know, and again, I'm not anti-police. Many out there believe that because of my involvement in activism, I am anti-police, and I am not. I'm actually very, very pro, peace officers, those who support and defend the Constitution, those who will uphold the oath that they took, Oathkeepers to the Constitution. I am pro those people. However, I'm anti-law enforcement because I believe that the very first thing that we should all do is to decide if this law is constitutional. As a police officer, your job is to decide, is this law constitutional before I enforce it? And that should be your very first step, the very first thing that you should do. So anyway, the officer decided to shoot, and he shot several times, and Michael Brown still continued coming. And he didn't stop until he was shot in the head. He shot until the threat was ended as he's trained. It turns out Michael Brown had drugs in his system. There's no real way, I believe, to determine if he was actually under the influence of drugs. It was marijuana. But regardless, it was in his system. So, he's not as innocent as he's made out to be. I believe in this city, the state, that marijuana is still illegal. I don't believe he had a medical marijuana card. We didn't hear anything about that. I've looked around for that. Couldn't find any information on it. So he obviously was involved in breaking the law, even though, again, I'm against the war on drugs, all of that. I think marijuana should be legal. But just to point it out, he did violate a law. And he was involved in a strong-arm robbery. He assaulted a police officer and then attempted to charge a police officer. So at this point, what do you expect? imagine you're not even a police officer, okay? And somebody had just assaulted you, and they were trying to walk away, and you're trying to hold them there until police arrive, and they charge at you. What are you to do? What would you do? How much would you take? Would you allow this 292-pound man to tackle you and pummel you? And I mean, who's to say that you could fight this guy off? Who's to say this guy wouldn't take your firearm and kill you with it? He already tried to take this officer's firearm. Shots went off in the vehicle. So who's to say that when Michael Brown did this, if the officer did not shoot, if Darren Wilson did not shoot, who's to say that Michael Brown wouldn't have used his firearm on the officer, the officer's firearm on the officer? So again, if there are so many cases around this country where this kind of thing happens, if this kind of injustice happens all the time, if this individual, let's say if people are executed broad daylight all the time, why this case? There are so many things wrong with this case for people to stand up on principle. This is not about principle. This is about something else. But it's certainly not about principle. It's about opportunism. People need an outlet to be angry. You know, I know that people are mad, but if you're on the hands up, don't shoot bandwagon, you're being deceived. You're being manipulated. There's no controversy here, as far as I'm concerned, other than the way that the government has handled the situation. You know, Obama, he's literally stoking the fires, and the National Guard, they're being held back. You know, even Eric Holder sent in to investigate, to create more investigatory situations into this process. If this hadn't got so much media attention, this would have never got such a thorough investigation. I believe Michael Brown was autopsied at, 3 times, something like that? This is absurd. How much attention they're trying to bring to this. We give the benefit of the doubt that the officer was a racist, apparently, instead of the benefit of the doubt that the department will handle it. The president doesn't even give the benefit of the doubt that the department will handle it. Or, you know, he has to bring in his own guys and have his own authority flexed in here. He can't even just speak to the department and make sure that they are handling it themselves. He has to send Attorney General Eric Holder in to investigate the situation and fan the flames. You know, why wasn't the National Guard called in? You know, they were there. They had already established a state of emergency, and this is all released. We knew this was going to happen. This should not have been a surprise to anyone. They said they were going to do this. And as I say all the time, you don't have to be psychic to know what's going to happen with these kind of people. You don't have to. The future. You don't need a crystal ball, no special powers, nothing along those lines. All you have to do is take these people at their word. If they say that they're going to torch the city down, it's going to be war, believe them. If they say they want to fundamentally transform America, believe them. If they say that if they could have got enough votes for it, that they would have demanded that every American citizen turn in their guns, as Feinstein has said, believe them. Because they think that you're too stupid. They believe that the American public, the American voter, is too dumb, as evidenced by one of the authors of Obamacare, Jonathan Gruber. We are too stupid to figure out what they're doing. Even if they say exactly what they're doing. We're too dumb. We're too apathetic. We don't care. We're not involved. We're so reliant. I'm telling you now, if something doesn't change, it's over. It's over for us. If we all don't wake up, wake our family members up, wake our friends, it's going to get bad. We have to take responsibility. We have to. Even if you are on some kind of government program and you're getting some kind of income, you can't let that control that they have over you dictate your actions, dictate what you stand for. You have to be willing to sacrifice. That's the only thing that it's going to come down to. You have to be willing to make sacrifices. You have to sacrifice your time, your energy, your thoughts. You have to really think about what is going on in our country, try to understand what they're doing, get involved, get active, get on the move. That's the whole point of this thing. You have to. So people now are actually clamoring for the National Guard because they were held back. Do you believe that this is a coincidence that they were held back and now people are like, oh, National Guard? Usually people are the exact opposite. Most people are like, oh, no, militarized police, no, martial law, no, these things are bad. But now we're hearing it all the time. Why isn't the National Guard there? Why haven't they declared martial law? Why? Well, now people are clamoring for it. I believe Stewart Rhodes is right. This is not an accident. Everything is happening for a reason, and it's all justification, this sick perpetual cycle, this justification for more expanding into our rights, expansion of the federal Leviathan. And let's talk about history. I want to go into this just a little bit here. History has shown successful and unsuccessful civil rights movements. And what was the most successful? Arguably, the most successful. I would have to say what changed the destiny of an entire nation would be Gandhi in India. The Indians were being essentially enslaved by the Britons. And Gandhi believed in an anti-violent approach to protest. And it's proven throughout history, time and time again, that governments do not know how to respond to nonviolence at all. Most civil rights campaigns, most situations like that, even in the Revolutionary War, it's about gaining supporters, public support for your cause, gaining loyalty of others. That's ultimately, in a nutshell, that is what civil rights movements are. You have to explain to somebody else, make your case to the majority of people or a good number of people that you have a valid case and to come over to your side. That's it. That is the exact goal of a civil rights movement, convincing people that you're the good guy and they should join your team. That's a civil rights movement. So, who do you think people are going to think is the bad guy if peaceful protesters are standing there getting beaten, getting shot, getting attacked by dogs, getting sprayed with water hoses? Who do you think people think are the bad guys? Obviously, the people who are inflicting violence on people who are not responding violently, even if they are receiving violence. Nonviolence is the only way to protest. It is the only way to affect change without blood. And the only way to affect change with blood is to have a stronger force. And it's just not possible these days. I will tell you right now, unless you've convinced enough people that your cause is just, then you will not be able to use force. And you can't use force to convince people that your cause is just. You see the cycle. People will see that you're the one inflicting the harm, i.e. what we see in Ferguson. People in Ferguson, you are alienating the cause that you claim to stand for. You think people are going to come flocking to your cause? Because you're burning your own community to the ground. Do you think that people are going to come in droves to support that kind of behavior? No. Now, it will be different if they're out there like another great civil rights leader, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. If they're out there protesting, arms locked, singing hymns, just marching, And violence is inflicted upon those Ferguson protesters as it was done with Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. If it was done like that, then obviously people would come and flock to the cause. And this is the difference. This is the difference we are seeing now. This difference is the difference between Dr. King and Malcolm X or the Black Panthers. This is the difference. Militants do not get the kind of support. Just look at the word militia. When you hear the word militia, it has, to a lot of people, a nasty annotation behind it. It's, militia. You know, especially if you're a liberal, you're like, I don't want to be involved in that. Oh, those guys with their guns and camouflage, and they probably hate the government, and they're racist, and they probably have a Confederate flag hanging in their garage or something like that. You know, these people think those are the items that they associate with a militia. This is the term that has been used with it. So militant protesters, the same thought process is attached to that too. People don't want to support these kind of things. It's lawlessness. Violence is not necessary, and it's unhelpful. It would be different if something could possibly come from it. I could see the argument. I would wholeheartedly disagree with it. I am a pacifist. I do not believe in violence. I will not inflict violence on anyone unless I'm given absolutely no choice. If it's my life or their life, I'm going to choose my life. If it's my family's life or their life, I'm going to choose my family. I don't want to do that. I believe that most things can be solved without violence. There's usually a nonviolent approach. However, if you're backed into a corner, then at some point you have to make that decision for yourself. But violence is not the answer in this situation. And in fact, it is a problem. It is driving people away from this cause, a cause which is not really legitimate to begin with, because why pick this case? So you have to ask yourself the question, who do you want to be? Do you want to be Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Do you want to be Malcolm X? Do you want to be Gandhi? Or do you want to be the Black Panthers? Just look to see, through the prism of history, what has been the most effective. And you can arguably say Gandhi's approach was arguably the best effective. His nonviolent approach forced the British to leave and get rid of their control over India. India became a sovereign nation because of Gandhi and his nonviolent approach, his peaceful protest, changed the hearts and minds. That is what it's about. That's what it always is, civil rights. It's changing the hearts and minds. It's the same in Vietnam. It's the same in Iraq, Afghanistan. I mean, all these things, you hear hearts and minds, got to win the hearts and minds of the people. Well, it's a big deal. If everyone is against you, if no one supports you, you will lose. You will lose. You got to convince people to come over to your side. And how do you do that? You show them that you're in the right. And you don't do that by burning private property, hurting other people, violent acts, vandalism, theft, looting. You don't do that through that. People see clearly you're the bad guy. Anyway, that's our show for today, guys. I really do appreciate you guys sticking around and joining us today. Members of the Mack Pack, I really do appreciate you guys for tuning in week after week. I appreciate your continued support. You guys are freaking amazing. And also I want to thank Stewart Rhodes for joining us today. Nice. And don't forget to tune in next week, guys. We got Sheriff Richard Mack that's going to be joining us next week. I am beyond excited about this. This is another big show, and I'm just honored to have him on. Anyway, don't forget to check us out at OnTheMoveShow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can follow us on here, and you can like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. I got a lot of activism videos on there and things like that, reviews of gear and books and things like that, and political commentary. Check it out. Subscribe. And you can follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow, and I'd appreciate it. And as always, guys, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.